Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Atpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedyadraginam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Yata sarvani bhutani pratibhanti stitani cha yatraivo pashamam yanti tasmai satyatmane namaha. So this evening begins Navaratri. So for those of us who are non-Indian Westerners, Soundarya, would you share with us what's the meaning of Navaratri and how it's celebrated?
Sure. I can only speak to what I know from what I grew up with.
That sounds good to me. Better than what I did growing up.
Navratri is essentially 9 days of celebrating the goddess Durga or Devi. Symbolizes the victory of light over darkness. In terms of celebrations, in my family at least, every day for 9 days, there would be some special prasadam being made and offered to the goddess. There would be chanting. Vasishtha Mardini, for example, is one of them. And then typically you also invite women or women or girls or daughters to your house and you give them gifts. You're essentially inviting the Devi to your house and honoring them with some small presents.
Anyone have anything to add to it? So, Susili, this word, Nava, means 9. We have a similar word in Catholicism. We have a novena, Nava, novena. What's a novena?
The novena is like 9 days to pray.
Yes. So this number, the sacred number, occurs. Does anyone have anything else to add on the celebration? So given especially with what's happening in Iran and in this country with the reduction of the rights of women over their own bodies, I think it's especially important to honor the goddess and in whatever way that works for you, to honor that feminine dimension of the infinite. All right. So last week we ended up with one verse that we were going to start, and it had too much mystic symbolism in it. So we'll start it over. So Mark, can you refresh our memory? I'm going to ask you to chant tonight so I can hear better. So what verse are we on? What page?
So it's verse 12 on page 206.
Got it? Yeah, nice and loud.
सात्विकस्यास्य भागस्य नागा विद्याधरातमः रजस्तु मुनय सिद्धा सत्वं देवाहरादयः. On the part which has the nature of sattva or light, knowledge and harmony, nagas or the mythical semi-divine beings having a human face and serpent tail inhabiting the netherworlds, and vidyadhara or a class of demigods constitute the tamas or darkness, ignorance and inertia subdivision. The rajas or agitation, passion and activity subdivision is constituted by sages and the accomplished ones endowed with supernatural powers. The sattva subdivision is constituted by the gods like Hari or Shiva.
So these are dimensions, ways in which psychologically we work in tamas, rajas, and sattva. Now, what Swamiji used to say, which I love, he says, in Hinduism, we don't have, he would say, mythology. We say mythology in American English. Instead, we have mystic symbolism. So these nagas and the Moody's and things which have transcended and celestial beings, all of these are dimensions of human consciousness. So in the tamasic realm, essentially what it means is we are prey to superstition. We tend to think of powers of divinity as things that we can control, frequently through ritual, and oftentimes it's about getting back at other people. So we're engaged in superstitious attribution of our own psychological elements and powers into totems of different kinds. In the Rajasic realm, and what was it? It was the Munis and who else?
Vidyadharas, the class of demigods.
Demigods, which, so here, these are those people who, to simplify it, see prayer and worship and things like that as kind of a divine Santa Claus. If I worship this deity or this Muni or this celestial being, I'll get cities, I'll have powers, but most importantly, I'll get what I want. And most of us, be we Indians or Westerners, when we go to prayer, it's to get stuff. It can be, oh, God, help me pass a test. Or Lakshmi, help me make my business profitable. But it's all rooted in this idea still that getting what I want is going to make me happy. Or even if I have a relationship with an ascended master. So I remember you telling us about your friends up north who their guru is Shirdi Sai Baba, and they have the Murti that has the vibhuti, the ash that comes out of it. But what do you do when you've got a Muni, a transcendent sage? You want to get stuff. Even living masters. When I was in Kerala in 1994, I hung out at the ashram of Amaji, the hugging saint, for about 10 days. And there were thousands of people who had come to see her and get her blessing. It was just fascinating to watch. The vast majority, of course, were Indians from within India. There were a lot of Westerners too. But they'd wait for days and days and days in order to get up, to get the darshan of the Guru. Oh, Amaji, should my son marry this girl? Oh, Amaji, should I go into business with so-and-so? They treated her as a fortune teller. She would give them the best wisdom she could. But contrast that with the 7 questions that we get in Viveka Chudamani. I tell you, if you go to the Guru for marital advice or business, stuff like that, okay. Who remembers the 7 questions from Viveka Chudamani? What is bondage? How has it come about? How does it continue to exist? How can I get out of it completely? What is the not self? Who is the real self? What is the process of discrimination between the two? Those are the kinds of questions to take to the Guru. And then the sattvic, what were the things there? Celestial beings?
The Rajas was sages and the accomplished ones, endowed with supernatural powers. The Sattva subdivision is considered by gods like Hara or Shiva.
Yes. So here is when we turn our heart and mind to the infinite as we understand God. Lord Shiva or Lord Vishnu. But there's a deeper meaning to this. And what it's implying here is the yogi's development of the power of intuition. When I have set aside my attachment to gaining this or getting rid of that, that's the Rajasic realm. And I get quiet. I open my mind to the infinite. And I seek knowledge of God's will. Then what the prophet Isaiah called the still small voice, the deepest part of the mind, the place where the human mind and the mind of God are one. We get direct, intuitive guidance, moment by moment, in the now, not for next week or 5 years from now, from the infinite. Now, what do I mean by this? You may be peaceful, maybe doing some housework or reading a book, and out of nowhere, you'll get the intuition. Oh, you're thinking of so-and-so. And you kind of get the sense, call so-and-so. If you practice acting on those leadings, You'll find some very interesting things begin to happen. We let go of the recipe-driven, rational part of the mind, which has its point, but there's a deeper part of the mind where we're connected with the mind of God. Any thoughts on this? Now, in the beginning, it's an occasional hunch or a moment of inspiration. But if we practice letting go of any investment in the outcome, just wait. We find it's an unerring directive for our lives. The intuition, which literally means inner teaching. Tuition is teaching. And it's an unerring guide for life. This is the inner guru. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Shuddham sattvam hyavidyaya bhago vidyete kathite tishtanti jnanino muktaha yavadheham jagat sthitau. The pure sattva portion of avidya or spiritual ignorance is declared as vidya or spiritual knowledge. Sages endowed with spiritual knowledge remain liberated as long as the body resides in the world.
So, in the world of Maya, there exists this thing called the human mind. And if that human mind is of the quality of pure sattva, its characteristic is knowledge of my own true nature and knowledge of the world. Remember, there's two kinds of knowledge we're dealing with here. There's a perfect knowledge. That perfect knowledge is the self-evidence of the self. You do not see, hear, taste, touch, smell, emote, or think yourself, yet you do not doubt that you are. The self is its own means of knowledge. It is Swayam Jyoti, self-luminous, self-effulgent. But in the human mind, if we go through this process, letting go of our belief in the world, letting go of our identification with any personal sense of self, and the mind becomes quiet. And at an auspicious moment in this space between your thoughts, the attentive faculty, introvert, in the mind, we notice, oh, I see, I am that partless Brahman, Chidananda Rupaham. I am of the form of bliss, consciousness. That realization doesn't happen to the self. It happens to the mind. One who's had this pratya vijnanam, this recognition, this aha, We call it Jivan Mukta, a liberated soul. That liberation does not affect the self. Bondage does not affect the self. Very subtle point. Any questions about this? So how can you have vidya in the world of avidya? Avidya is the world of Maya. In the world of Maya, we have these illumined souls. What is it? It's the mind that has come to know Aham Brahmasmi, I am. Any thoughts, any questions on this? Next one.
Maurkhya Pinda Stharavadi Tamasya Avidhingataha Tatram Manastvam Apraptam Manasvadapi Chakshutam. An object like the mountain, which is a mass of stupidity, has gone to the limit of the quality of tamas, or darkness, ignorance, and inertia. There, the state free from the mind is not obtained. It has also fallen from the state of the thinking mind.
So, a stone, its being is Sat, but the Chaitanya, the consciousness in it, is pure tamas. It does not know anything. It doesn't even know that it doesn't know. Pure tamas. Yet it is still Brahman. But the quality of it, this is what distinguishes this gradation of various things and beings in the world, how tamasic, rajasic, or sattvic they are. Now it's interesting because the scriptures say human beings are the ultimate because they have the capacity to have an awakened mind and know they are Brahman. I'm not sure they're the only ones. I'm just very keen on elephants lately. They're pretty rude. Who knows whether they know their self-nature is Brahman? Some things, right? But they're cool. And other beings in outer space, who can say? But there is rudimentary consciousness, even in a stone, in a mountain. All right, going on.
Supta Puryashtaka Yatra Chitstita Dukkhadayini Mukandha Jadavat Tatra Sattam Atrena Tishtati. Where the consciousness remains asleep with its eightfold body, that is the five subtle elements, the mind, the intellect, and the ego, it is the giver of sorrow. It remains there merely as existence, like a dumb, blind, and dull person. Note, the five tanmatras or sense perceptions, that is sound, touch, form, taste, and smell, together with the internal instruments, the thinking mind, the determinative intellect, and the faculty that creates a sense of I, constitute the body, as it were, of the conscious spirit where it sleeps. When consciousness awakes or is freed from these limitations, it shines in its own splendor.
So what he's basically saying is, in that middle realm between a mountain and a Jivan Mukta is the vast majority of beings, including human beings who have the five senses. Some beings, like sharks, have extra senses. They have those little pits that detect electromagnet. Anyway, but minds and intellects. But because of Maya, they do not know their essential nature. So these beings, and this is the vast majority of humans, 99.999% of them, think I am my body, or my body plus my personality. They do not know that they are not. Next verse.
Shri Rama Uvacha Sattam Atrena Sansthanam Mukte Sannihitam Khalu. Sri Rama said, is it not firmly abiding as mere existence close to liberation?
So, if you are a human being or a lizard or a dog, and you just abide as being, I don't think about those philosophical things. I eat, drink, procreate, sleep. Isn't that close to liberation? It's better than a stone or a mountain. Let's see what the answer is.
Vasishtha Uvacha Buddhi Purvam Vicharyaiva Yathavas Valokanat Satta Samanya Bodhoya Samoksha Syatcha Chanyatha. Vasishtha said, having already investigated intentionally so that on account of looking out for or inquiry into reality, there is the knowledge of the totality of existence, that would be liberation, not otherwise.
Yes. So, only when the fruit of investigation has taken place is there liberation. Now, let's sum up a bit what this section is. Remember, this is all an abridgment. The image that I like to use is, well, I'll share what Swamiji used to say. It's an evolution, not a revolution. One of his little rhyme schemes. So all of life moves like a great river towards the infinite. And each one of us has been a germ and a worm and a fish and a lizard and a four-legged animal. And then for many lifetimes, just a two-legged animal. Always being driven by, where is the good? How do I get away from misery? That is literally the Dharma working in us. You try this and then that, another thing over and over and over again. But it's not static. It's not just a circle. It's a spiral. The evolution of the human soul coming home to the infinite. And you may think you have chosen to enter into the spiritual path. You didn't choose it any more than you chose puberty. Nobody chooses puberty. But like puberty, when you go through puberty, you may not have chosen puberty, but it sure makes you make choices. So also, when the divine discontent begins to blossom in the human heart, I want to know, I want to be free. We become a mumukshu. And then we begin fruitful investigation. And even that may take several lives. And at the end, Jiva. Game over. At some point, the river enters into the ocean. It's gone as a river. So, why do I share this with you? Take heart. Strive hard for liberation. And don't really worry about being a fallen yogi. Your suffering will do its duty. It'll beat you into reasonableness. More and more, the mind turns towards the end. Any thoughts on this? I like to say that Vedanta is the most compassionate of all religions. There are no infidels. Nobody is cast into hell forever. Everybody comes home to God in time. Nobody's left out. All right, next verse.
Parignyaya parityago vasananam apekshate antasukta sthita manda yatra bija iva kuraha vasanatat sushuptatvam vidhi janma pradam punaha. The renunciation of mental impressions is required after having thoroughly known them. When the dull mental impression remains asleep within, like the sprout within a seed, know that to be thorough sleepiness or insensibility causing birth again.
Yes. So the word he's using here for mental impression is vasana, a term with which we're very familiar. Vasana, an impression left in the unconsciousness as the result of my prior dancing with the objects of the senses. When after engagement with them, I engage in chintya, rumination over it. Oh, that was really wonderful. I want to do that again. Or, oh, that was terrible. I'll never do that again. That leaves an impression. What is the primary power of the vasana? There's two powers, Avarana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. First and terrible power of a vasana is that it robs me of self-experience. I go to sleep to my essential nature. Then Vikshepa Shakti, I think I'm a person. I think the world is separate from me. And this is serious business and I have to work back out. So what he's saying here, the cause of the bondage is my spiritual ignorance, which is nothing more than the collection of my vasanas. What's the experience of pure vasana? It's deep sleep, pure ignorance. So all of yoga, no matter what practices you're doing, has as its intention vasana purgation. The removal of ignorance. We strike at the root of vasana through Atma Vichara, investigation into my self-nature. Because knowledge destroys ignorance, action does not. Thinking of an arithmetic problem, you don't know what it is. How many jumping jacks do you have to do? How many times must you run around the block? How many chants must you do? Ask me what the arithmetic problem is.
What's the arithmetic problem?
10 times 2 is 20. How did you find out the answer? You investigated. It's that simple. Because the antidote to ignorance is jnana. It's knowledge. I'm talking about a specific kind of knowledge. We're not talking about the knowledge you find in a book. We're talking about the knowledge of the direct inquiry into myself. If the problem is the non-apprehension, that's what Vasana does, then apprehend yourself. How? In a quiet mind, turn the attentive faculty inside. What Swamiji used to say, the introversion of the mind. Investigate. Now, the problem is the mind is really noisy and extroverted. That becomes very difficult. So we do these preparatory practices to calm things down so that self-inquiry becomes efficacious. All right, next verse.
Sthavarādaya etehi sushupta padamāśritaah tesham antasthita eva vasana bija-rūpatah. These stationary objects, such as stones, trees, and the like, have indeed resorted to the state of thorough sleep or insensibility. The mental impressions just exist within them in seed form.
Yes. So, in the early stages of our spiritual evolution, stones, etc., everything is in its seed form. There's total non-apprehension of everything. Now, trees, they have a little more rudimentary intelligence. They actually have quite a bit of sentience. I invite you to read the novel Overstory. Who here's read it? It's about trees and about how they actually communicate through chemistry. Really cool. But here he's talking about, again, these, using the gunas as a paradigm. So dirt, mountains, rocks, they're pretty tamasic. Going on.
yatrasti vasana bijam tat sushuptam na siddhaye nirbija vasana yatra tatturyam siddhadam smritam. Where there is the seed or germ of mental impression, that is the state of sleep, and does not bring about fulfillment or self-realization. Where the mental impression is without seed, that is the fourth state of consciousness, turiya. That is regarded as producing spiritual perfection.
Yes. So, if I think I'm a person, I think I'm my body or my body plus the personality, it means I'm deluded. And ignorance can be very tricky. Jim, I'm getting very spiritually involved because I've read the entire Gita backwards. I've not only read the 11 principal Upanishads, but I'm making my way through the minor ones. I'm very holy. I'm so holy I don't touch my mouth with my hands when I eat. I throw my food in. Nonsense. You still think you're a person. The seed of ignorance is still there. So what do? What's the practice that's implied? Ramana Maharshi made it so clear. Oham, who am I? When a sense perception arises, to whom did this perception occur? To me. Who am I? Go turn the attentive faculty within. An emotion arises. To whom did this emotion occur? To me. Who am I? Turn the attentive faculty. And what happens when you go looking for a Jim or a Soundarya or a Susali? That false self, that chit-chaya, that shadow of consciousness falls. What you see is something real. Real aham. Chidananda Rupaham. I'm of the form of bliss consciousness. Shivoham. Every time you notice that you're that ground of being, for that moment, vasana falls. Any questions about this? Two kinds of people in the world. Those in ignorance. What is the mark of the person in ignorance? I think I'm my body. I think I'm a person. Second group of people are not those who think they're enlightened. They know they are Brahman. If you think you're an enlightened person, you're a fool. Because you still think you're a person. You just have spiritual vasanas that are clouding your consciousness. The woman or man of wisdom knows I'm not a person. I never was. Next verse.
वासनाया तथा वह्नेः ऋणव्याधिद्विषामपि स्नेहवैरविषाणां च शेषस्वल्लोपि बाधते. Even a little bit of residue of mental impressions, as well as that of fire, debt, disease, enemy, oiliness or affliction, hostility, and poison oppresses or vexes.
Yes. Here, even if there's a little bit of attachment, a little bit of identification, and the effect will be Vikshepa Shakti. I think I'm a person. So the Cliff Notes version of this, if I think I'm a person, I'm deluded. When I'm deluded, my mind will always tell me to resolve the struggle of ego. I've got to go, and I need to go from point A to point B. Yoga says, drop it. Not only drop the struggle, but drop the struggler. Remember who you are. Drop the Vikshepa Shakti. Drop the Avarana Shakti. How do I drop the Avarana Shakti? Its nature is ignorance. What's the antidote to ignorance? Knowledge. Turn the mind inward. Look. See what's there. Maybe you're a little gray ball with wings. Maybe you're a flame the size of the thumb in the heart. Shunyata. It's empty. But it's also poor enough. Full. Don't believe me. Look. Go there. Meet me there. Next one.
Nirdagdha vasana bija satta samanya rupavan sadeho va videho va nabhuyo dukkha bhagavat. One who has burnt the seed of mental impressions and has the nature of the generality or totality of existence will not be unhappy again, whether he is with the body or without the body.
Yes. So this is very interesting stuff. We have these apparent distinctions in the scripture of being jivan, mukta, liberated while alive, and videho moksha, liberated beyond the body when you die. Actually, the woman of realization is both right here, right now. So, Soundarya, can you see the lamp?
Yeah.
Are you a lamp?
No.
If I take the lamp and put it on the floor and you can no longer see the lamp, are you a lamp?
No.
Have you changed a bit whether the lamp is on the floor or on the table?
No.
No. Likewise, whether the body is perceived or it's gone back to the dust, you are still the Deha, beyond the body. Always. Now, what's important to understand as a practice, many of us can see that we may have an attachment to being in the body. I don't want to die. I want more stuff. I want more love. I want more sex. But some of us have dealt with most of our attachments, but we hang on to some aversions. Oh, life is terrible. I'm so sensitive, and people are so cruel, and the world is falling apart, and it's just terrible. I can't wait till I get realized so I don't have to come back to this funny farm of the world. That's not liberation. So the yogi not only has to live with death on one shoulder. Are you ready to die today? But you want to live with physical immortality on the other shoulder. What if you're going to be in the body for the rest of eternity? What if it's going to be just like this forever? How are you going to live? Answer is still the same. Anama Vairagya. Supreme detachment. Laugh, watch, enjoy, but don't touch. Any thoughts on this? So all these conversations of, okay, after the Mahatma dies, is there some personality that remains that you can tune into and stuff like that? Or do they dissolve back into nothingness? Will I dissolve back into nothingness? When I die, am I just dead, lights out, nothing? Or is there something of me, a person which exists? For the Jivan Mukta, the Videho. Who cares? Right now, you are not the body any more than Saundara is a limb. The body falls down, so what? And if another body rises up, so what? Any questions about this?
So the reason we think, or it's so hard to not think that we are the body is because of just years of reinforcing I am the body.
Not just years, dear.
Lifetimes.
Lifetimes. Since you were a lizard, the lizard thinks he's his body. It's very hard. But that's all it is. It's just a habit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And how do you change a habituated thought process? You investigate what's real. So I always think of the ugly duckling syndrome. So there's a young girl, and when she's a young teenager, she's gangly or maybe overweight or has bad skin. And then finally, when she gets through puberty in her late teens, maybe early 20s, she's discovered she's actually a really beautiful young woman. But she can still think she's ugly. Have you ever had friends who've been through this? Sometimes that will hold in the mind for a lifetime. Someone sees a photo of them, my God, what a beautiful woman. They don't see it. They don't see it. They're still the little ugly duckling that never grew up to be a swan. So also, we grow up thinking I am the body. We keep looking, keep reinforcing the direct experience. I'm not a body. Using the arguments, the logic as it's set forth in Scripture. That's why we have it. And we hang on to those scriptures because they're powerful. Take a deep breath. Are you aware of the breath in the body?
Yeah.
How can you be the body when you know the breath in the body? The empirical evidence is the body is an object of cognition. You just have this habituated thought that I'm the body. Such is the power of Maya. But mother tigers, mother ducks, mother elephants, mother lizards, they all think they're their body. Oh, it's nature. All right, next verse. How many more have we got in this chapter?
9 more in the chapter.
Many more? Okay.
Atmadrishti adrishtaisha sansara brahmadayini drishta sati samagnanam dukkhanam shayakarini. When this knowledge of the self has not manifested, it is the producer of the delusion of worldly existence. When manifested, it causes the destruction of all the sorrows.
Yes. And he's used the term here, atmadrishti. Drishti means to see. So we can say when the vision of the self is actually how I would translate it. Knowledge of the self, vision of the self. So what he's saying here is, if you do not know who you are, when in the mind I do not have that aha, that atmadrishti, that pratyabhijnanam, Then I have Drishti, the vision of the body, the knowledge of the body. All the sorrow comes. But what knowledge of the self gives us, nothing ever touches me. Think. So, for example, Soundarya, how long have you been coming here?
3.5 years.
Okay. Now, soon after we started to work together, there were moments when your mind would get quiet and you look within and you could see that vast empty space of consciousness. Am I right?
Yeah.
Now, in that 3.5 years, the body has changed. You got more wrinkles.
Yes.
Hmm?
Yes. White hair.
Right here. Job has changed. House has changed. Friends have come and gone. But if you stop for a moment and look within, is the self changed?
No.
That's who you are. And what about this world? Bodies, feelings, thoughts, friends, homes, jobs. They will always keep changing. But none of it ever touches you. You know what it's like when you want something really badly and you don't have it. Does it suck?
Yes.
And sometimes you get what you want. But sometimes you have the insight to just be able to let it go. What happens to the suffering when you let it go?
It goes away.
Which proves to you the happiness isn't in the object, it's yourself. What have you done? You've gotten rid of the Vikshepa Shakti to some degree. So painful. And at least what I came to see, it's so boring because it's so damn repetitive. I mean, what I would get upset about, it never changed. It's the same stupid story. Again. Again. Don't you get tired of it? But that's where we can be attached to our suffering. Just the positive stuff. Very weird what the mind does. All right, next one. Om Namah Shivaya. By the way, sweetheart, your mind is exactly like everybody else's. You are not unique in any way. You are such a textbook yogi. They wrote a book about you 1,000 years ago. So I hope that gives you comfort.
It does.
Act out the spiritual syndromes of ignorance. That's all it is. Going on.
अस्यास्त्वद्दर्शनं यत्तत् अविद्येयुच्यते बुधैः अविद्या हि जगद्धेतु तत सर्वं प्रवर्तते. The non-manifestation of this self-knowledge is called avidya or spiritual ignorance by the wise. This avidya is indeed the cause of the world. From that, everything arises.
Yes. So first comes the non-apprehension of my essential nature, called avidya, ignorance, called avritti, non-apprehension, avarana shakti, veiling power, tamas, original sin. That's what the deepest meaning of it is for those of us from the Christian tradition. Illusion, delusion. What follows it? Vikshepa Shakti, the projecting power. I think I'm a person. The world of name and form is real, and it has inherent joy-giving and misery-producing qualities. And I engage in the serious business of conquering life. More, better, different, more, better, different. And yoga says, knock yourself out. But I talk about the spiritual economy. 95 cents worth of work for a nickel's worth of pleasure, at best. Or it's like going to the casino where you keep just dumping the money in the damn slot machine and you don't get anything back. Too often, that's all it is. Yoga says, get out. Realize yourself and learn to abide in the self, meaning where the mind can stay home and not get so tangled with the illusion of this world. I've shared this with you all before. My favorite shloka in Gita, chapter 2, verse 55. When a person casts off all the desires of the mind, O Arjuna, and is satisfied in the self, by the self, then they are said to be a person of steady wisdom. Sthita pragya purusha. My mind, all of yoga is in that verse. To really understand that verse, there's nothing more to do. All right. Anything else? Any questions, thoughts, comments? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.